So a few months ago I played Fallout 76, and although it can easily be classed as the worst game in the franchise by many players, I didn't mind it. It definitely had been improved since launch, but yes, it does still have its flaws. So I wanted to compare the older games and see how they're different and much better. So I do feel like it's the perfect time to check out Fallout 4 for a number of reasons. Of course, you may have heard or even watched yourself the new Fallout series on Prime, which has been getting a lot of good feedback. And for people that have never played the games, they are starting to jump into them now because of the show. And the thing is with Fallout 4, although the show isn't based on any particular entry in the franchise, I would say Fallout 4 has the most similarity, as well as the new and next-gen FPS update coming out on the 25th of April, allowing for 60 FPS on PS5 and Xbox Series X, so it just seems like the right time. And it also doesn't matter what order you play them in anyway. Now I do want to start off with the story of Fallout 4, with minor spoilers, only because I recap the intro of the game just to sort of set the premise of the plot, and I didn't care to follow Fallout 76's story as closely, and that's just because it didn't seem that exciting in any way, and the main focus to me is the world and the gameplay, which was also in that game. Now I must say Fallout 4's story and overall plot is better, still nothing massively engrossing. The start of the game is of course quite similar to other titles. Basically the bombs are dropped in the year 2077, where your character's wife or husband, because you can pick between a female and male protagonist, and the one you didn't pick will be your spouse. And also the character customization is of course once again very in-depth, like many Bethesda games, going as far as sculpting every inch of your character's face with various hairstyles and colours, blemishes and markings to make them look exactly the way you want, which they didn't really have to go so in-depth with, but it's great that you can, because of course there's quite a lot of dialogue and cutscenes where your character's appearance is very present, and you can also build their personality and the way they act, so overall you are quite responsible for a lot of the protagonists, which I'll go more into later. You also start with your son Sean, where all three of you are evacuated to Vault 111 and put into cryopods to all be preserved. Now all the others inside the pods died before release, however 200 years later you're still alive as the life support worked and set free. However your son is taken away from you, and once you leave the vault into this outside world in the year 2287, after the world is now mostly derelict, the mission starts with you tracking down your son. But once you are out in this post-apocalyptic world, the exploration is all out there and you are free to discover this area after 200 years. And a big part of the gameplay, like many Bethesda games, is just the life and character interaction. Though almost everyone you meet are NPCs dotted around the map and not so much main role characters, the connections you build with them, the freedom is in your hands to again build up your character how you want them to be, with multiple choice dialogue, some responses being friendly or rude, others sarcastic, etc. Bethesda do nail it with this aspect, I must say, and it was still great in Fallout 76. In fact, this game isn't the best for dialogue. It's still great of course, but the multiple choices have definitely been improved in other games in terms of their effect and what changes if you say something different, making it a bit more unique to you and the gameplay of course. It's also something that worked quite well in the Outer Worlds and was probably my favourite aspect of that game. Now these characters and animals you come up against and meet is what makes each location unique in itself and different to one another, which is quite funny to say in a game that is focused around a world with almost no life in it anymore. And this just brings me on to the actual environment design, which compared to Fallout 76 I already preferred quite early on. I just preferred the setting way more in this game. It's more diverse to me with such a mix of location design, and actually uses a good amount of colour after almost everything being blown up and overgrown. It's something that really takes over the whole game and puts the story to a side. I personally wouldn't say I played this game, or even any Fallout game for that matter, for its story, as long as they keep sticking to this incredible environment exploration. That being said, I have only played 4 and 76, whereas I am aware I've heard many good things about the New Vegas and 3 narratives, so I am quite excited for them. The creatures are always so unusual and well put together in Fallout, and they're not different in 4. They're still low-key scary, especially when they're swarming or charging at you whilst you struggle to compose yourself. Even early on in the game, I think with the setting being so far into the future, just the possibilities are endless for the creatures crammed into this world and their unique design. Also the graphics and visuals themselves hold up quite well. The game came out in 2015, so it's of course not ultra realistic, but it's not like it looks ugly in any way. It still looks good and pleasing to the eye, and as mentioned, the detail and what's in the world makes up for how good that stuff looks like in terms of the graphics, if that makes sense. Also, Fallout has always followed this simpler sort of look, with sort of flatter tones and less high textured patterns, which makes it unique in a way, and this is all on vanilla with no mods. Now onto the performance of the game, and it is a Bethesda, so I kept my expectations a little lower. I wasn't expecting the smoothest of gameplay, and to be honest, it wasn't bad. I mean, the gameplay itself ran fine, and unless I was, you know, in close quarters, then I didn't experience any major issues. And then when in close combat, and to be honest, this doesn't have anything to do with the performance, but more so the animations and camera, I suppose. But there were many times when the camera would get blocked, or when moving through or over objects, it just felt a bit clunky and not the smoothest. But for the most part, it was fine. Now, the only bug I encountered a few times was dialogue issues, and to be honest, there's an awful lot of it, so I did expect it. But basically, the lines didn't match up with the character speaking, and it was off time every now and then. So it wasn't all the time, but I thought I'd just mention it, as it can take away the immersion slightly more for some. Overall, the performance was smooth and ran quite well for how dense this world is, whether that be in gunfights, the gunplay's really smooth, or just walking around exploring. And that is where I end my review of Fallout 4 in 2024. I fully recommend this game to anyone who is considering coming back, and especially for new players. It's just a great way to get into the franchise. Definitely don't play 76 first, and as stated, it probably is the most similar to the TV show for anyone who's, you know, thinking of playing that because of that, as well as it being fairly recent in terms of the Fallout series, whereas the ones before are starting to show their age a bit. And of course, if you're on the next gen consoles, the next gen update is releasing on the 25th, so what better time? It also means that it's available on almost every platform, which is great. So if you did enjoy this video, then let me know by tapping that like button below, and if you enjoy single player and story driven games, then that's what this channel is all about. I have lots of reviews on a bunch of games, and there's a playlist of a series I've done in the description. Also, if you'd like to support me by becoming a member at either level 1 or 2 to gain access to many perks, then click the join button below, or there'll also be a link in the description. So thank you all for the support and watching until the very end. That was Fallout 4, and bye bye.